20th, 1954. This event only lasted for days and days, until after a minimum amount of people were also being shot by the Ku Klux Klan. As for slaves, they live in a farm. This is where it took place in Zionsville, Indiana. People were being called slaves at that said rural farm, to what it's called the Thompson Farms, in the Zionsville Rail Trail. Citizens in Indiana were ratherly poor and wanted old things kept alive. Others in the farm were likely prone to their rural lives in this rural community.
I would tell, if this is an American Profile promo coming this Friday, I could have switched my time to 10 o'clock so that I couldn't wait in minutes to see it this Friday night.
American Profile, Home Country, USA. Starts Friday night 10/9 Central, on NBC, the Full Color Network.
To be quite honest, most farmers had an old-fashioned TV to get a good look of the nostalgia coming up on the following weekdays. For example, the first scene came after the Friday night time slot. Imagine you was there, in the house, ready to go out and participating the Morley March with yourself. Fortunately no group of people were there.
Nice title.
Then you have to wait for the time slot to appear. Eventually, this was the original Friday night time slot from 10 o'clock p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. Central. Most of the farmers in the community of Indiana were just beginning.
Would you look at that? They're showing the Friday night time slot.
How did you know that?
I've been seeing this promo and now I'm thinking I could schedule the time to 9 o'clock p.m. in the evening.
People in the suburbs could say that same feeling in 1954. That was, until in June 24, 1954. A mass mediocre has happened during that time. After the outbreak of that said war, millions and millions of people were being protected at home, while after a 15-minute outbreak, people at Zionsville were still shocked.
Not if I have a word to say about it, Ku Klux Klan. You, sir, are so ignorant to the people amongst them. You should be ashamed of what you and the Klan did during the event.
That was, before February 17th of 1959. A 15-minute outbreak had ended, until the Ku Klux Klan shouted one last final sentence with all three words in existing.
So, it was just a breakout then.
Don't mention the Klan. It wasn't too late before we got inside.
Who just got out of the house and pretended the Klan was no longer in sight. I thought of that when we took the house to sell it for our property, and I think that this was Morley. I think that it got better than the one from the Selma to Montgomery March, as well as the Selma to Montgomery Trail. I wish there was more to come after the year had ended quick.
I was just about to reach into my destination to the corridor room, and once we're from that, I kept my money safer in the farthest closet possible. You ought to know that I wasn't Mr. Scrooge though. Or like that cartoon Peking duck known as Scrooge McDuck. He's always fond of having taxes and he's interested in money.
It wasn't that much after the Klansmen had nowhere to shoot, but it was shot at the wounds of a broken arm. They did anything to repair their broken arms, but there is no choice.
As a reverend, we will still march forever until we end eternally. The Ku Klux Klan was nowhere to be found. Even though things were still tough, the same thing. We would fight the differences whatsoever. We will not stop. We have to face the facts. The Klan will no longer be tolerated at all. Justice will be prevailed forevermore.
And it is still to this day. On June 6, 1967, the people were reunited equally again, because the Morley March was been a 13-mile-long success. No Ku Klux Klan in sight. The people of Indiana were free to come back to business, while after a mediocre event had touched down people's hearts, sending the Ku Klux Klan away at another continent.
So, what do you say we take a long walk to historic Morley, Indiana?
Okay. We'll talk about it after we walk in.
People will now know the world today as historic Morley, which it leads to the County Road 450 north of Indiana. The final date is June 10th of 1968. Phil Harris III discovered the Morley March, a grand success at this point, in which he commenced a new holiday worldwide. Even when school is closed for 7 weeks by the present year, businesses will still return for the following 7 weeks off of school. Just to remember how it all began in 1954. This will still be the only phase of this event, and not like the other phases of this year. It is likely to become a national holiday during that said 13-mile event.
I was very glad the Ku Klux Klan was not intended to shoot at other partners, like us cowboys. We aren't very afraid. We took that last step to control our fears. And that was a miracle. I couldn't believe how long it took forever. In 2 minutes past, we was far from the White Klan before we hid. We were darn purty we managed to make it in time. That led to me as a cowboy poet, and, if ya dare, or actually you can't hit more hand, before ya move it.
What it all matters is that Phil Harris will not only be elected as a new president, but he will always live on our hearts forever and ever until he goes back home in Indiana.
In other words, all of Indiana is not lost, and we would appreciate this march to become a 13-mile commemoration between Morley and the West Riding Street of Indiana.
And also, in Florida, Phil Harris will also commemorate this Morley March with different streets this time, and that leads to the West Riding of Orlando and New Morley Street.
Sweetie, I'm back from work. And my gosh, it is so hard to do overwork. Anyways, I'm stamped out.
Okay, miss. I will manage to open the door for you.
Others include Selma Town, where this place got originated by the city of Selma, in Alabama, a mile off of Montgomery.
And we are all in this together, claiming the Morley March to be successful and unlike all marches, including the Selma to Montgomery March. We will not go silent by chance. We can stand up for our own rights and do what is right, away for what is wrong, and forget the do's and don'ts of race and inequality. This is only a matter of justice and of zeal, and nevertheless, we shall take part of this history in this 2019, meaning that we will specifically still march on beyond our beliefs of trying.
And that's where we end this history of the Morley March, and it's not just another kind of event, it is a holiday event known from around the United States of America.